what if healing from something as horrific as genocide could actually begin with forgiveness, even before like a full apology is offered? And what if it wasn't the perpetrators who initiated this, but the victims themselves?
Wow.
That's what we're diving into today.
Okay.
We're taking a look at reconciliation between Germany and Armenia. Kind of surprising.
Yeah, reconciliation is, it's a winding road. It's rarely straightforward, often ignored. I think what makes this case so interesting is the role of faith communities. They really took the lead and stepped in where, political solutions seemed impossible.
So where does Germany even fit into this? Because we're talking about the Armenian Genocide.
Exactly. So, Germany wasn't the main perpetrator during the genocide, which, is from 1915 to 1923. They were a key ally of the Ottoman Empire during that time.
Right.
And that kind of alliance, coupled with Germany's inaction during those years, is what makes this event that we're talking about today so significant.
So this is where it gets, I think, really intriguing. Fast forward to August 2019, there was this delegation of German religious leaders, and this even included a prince.
Wow.
And they traveled to Armenia specifically to ask for forgiveness for their nation's past.
Yeah. And it's important to note that these apologies, they weren't just these general statements of regret. They were very deeply personal, acknowledging the German church's silence during the genocide, their failure to speak out against what was happening. It was a public reckoning with their own inaction.
We're lucky to have access to these events through the account of someone who was actually present.
Yeah, Dr. James Pursley's account really captures the raw emotion of those meetings. It's like we're right there with them in the room, feeling the weight of history.
Yeah, he really does paint a picture. Imagine German pastors, bishops, even royalty, all standing before these Armenian church leaders in Yerevan.
Yeah.
It must have been incredibly powerful.
Oh, absolutely. And the language itself is striking. Pursley, he records words of confession, repentance, just a genuine desire to make amends. For instance, one German pastor said, "We were our brother's keeper. We are guilty."
Wow, we are guilty.
Yeah.
I mean, to admit guilt so openly, especially for religious leaders, that must have carried so much weight in that room.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it speaks to such a deep sense of responsibility, a recognition that remaining silent, especially in the face of such injustice, is a form of complicity.
Really makes you think, right? About the times we might have stayed silent when we should have spoken up.
Yeah, definitely.
But what about the Armenian response? Because, I mean, they could have very easily just rejected these apologies.
Right.
I mean, who would fault them?
Yeah. And that's what's so captivating about this. The Armenian reaction was so unexpected, I'd even say extraordinary.
They responded with grace. Yeah, it was really remarkable. Dr. Pursley actually shares the words of Archbishop Nathan Hyvantian. He's a leading figure in the Armenian church. And his response, I think, really gets to the heart of this whole thing, this idea of forgiveness.
Yeah, so.
He said, God gives forgiveness. We also need someone to forgive us as priests.
Wow.
Makes you think, right? Even religious leaders who are, supposed to embody forgiveness, they need it too.
Yeah, absolutely. It speaks to that universal need for forgiveness. I mean, regardless of your position, your beliefs, I think it also reminds us that the Armenian people's faith played a really crucial role in their response. This belief in a God who offers redemption, healing.
All right.
It likely influenced their capacity for forgiveness in this situation.
That makes sense. But this goes beyond just religious doctrine, right?
Absolutely. It resonates with a core principle of restorative justice. This idea that offering forgiveness, even if a complete apology hasn't been offered, can be a powerful step towards healing.
Interesting.
It challenges that, kind of traditional victim-perpetrator dynamic.
Right.
And suggests a more, nuanced path towards reconciliation.
Yeah, it's a very powerful concept, this idea that forgiveness can sometimes be a catalyst for change.
Right.
Even more so than punishment or retribution. But it wasn't just about words, was it?
You're right.
Yeah.
This delegation, they didn't just offer words. They offered these really symbolic gestures. And one of the most significant was this presentation of a really, really precious bottle of wine.
Oh, really? What's the story there?
Yeah, so Prince Michael of Salm, he's a descendant of German nobility.
Okay.
He presented this wine to the Archbishop, explained that his family had been making wine for over 1,000 years.
Wow.
And that they had actually learned the craft from Armenians
Yeah.
who were among the first to cultivate grapes in that region.
Wow. So it wasn't just any wine. It was a symbol of their shared heritage, a reminder that, even amidst the horrors of genocide, there's this time of connection, of exchange.
Exactly. It served as this really powerful reminder of the humanity of both sides, even in the face of, unimaginable cruelty.
Yeah.
But maybe the most moving moment actually came at the end of the meeting.
Yeah. Tell me more. What happened?
Dr. Pursley, he describes the German delegates surrounding the Armenian pastors in prayer, and it created this incredibly moving visual of unity and support.
Wow. I bet. Incredibly emotional, really powerful image of reconciliation in action. But it raises some interesting questions, right?
Yeah.
Just acknowledging something like this, these historical wrongs, can that even open the door to healing and reconciliation, especially when, there's not even full political agreement on it? Because, the image is powerful of them praying together.
Yeah.
But did it actually lead to any real change?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's what we all grapple with on a personal level, on a societal level.
Right.
We see these grand gestures, but can they actually heal those wounds of the past?
Especially in this case, because Germany as a country still hasn't officially recognized the Armenian Genocide.
That's true. And the fact that this whole thing came from religious groups,
right,
not from the German government, it adds this whole other layer, doesn't it? It makes you think about the role of institutions versus individuals in all of this and righting these historical wrongs.
That's a really good point. So, how should we even interpret this event? Where does this leave us?
Well, I think what it shows us is that healing can begin even when you don't have that complete political agreement. It might not be perfect,
right,
but it's a start. I think it shows that acknowledging the pain of the past and seeking that forgiveness, even if it's just that, a first step, it can be incredibly powerful.
It's about connection, right? Human connection.
Yeah.
Recognizing each other's humanity, even in the midst of these awful events.
Absolutely.
And maybe that is where it all begins, not with governments, not with treaties, but with these individual acts of courage, of confession, forgiveness.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And it requires us to move beyond just placing blame or dwelling on the past and start to imagine a future where healing is possible, a future where, those who were once enemies can stand together, united.
What a story. As we wrap up our deep dive today, I think the question we're left with is, what can we learn from this? What conversations do we need to start having? Maybe in our own lives or in our communities about healing and forgiveness that right now just seem impossible. And how can we be inspired by the courage of these people, the Armenians, the Germans who took these first steps together? How can we be inspired by them to work towards a better future together?